Hi, and welcome to the Aussie Ideas Man and another practice run at learning how to make YouTube content. This time I'm giving Aptera a break and telling you my thoughts on what Australia should have done to handle the COVID-19 pandemic and what it can still do. These are my ideas, and lately I'm getting less and less of them. However, I want to contrast what has happened with what would have been better as far as my thinking goes. But the horse has truly bolted, and the remedy is much harder than the original prevention, as is usually the case. If you make it past 30 seconds to nearly the end, you will see why. Let me begin by saying COVID doesn't spread unless our human contacts are unmasked and we are inside 1.5 metres of each other, if our experts are to be believed. So not spreading it and getting rid of it should be easy. Yet we are the highest spreaders per million of all the first world countries at present. So our actions as a nation are banal. For those watching from outside Australia, your country's situation may be more difficult due to geography, but this is how easy it was for Australia and New Zealand, as well as other island nations, to keep it out. Any island nation has more than 1.5 metres of water separating it from another, in fact to the tune of millions more. So wearing a mask is totally unnecessary, and the solution to not getting it is as simple as keeping people out. This is easily done because there are few international airports and cruise ship terminals. Just ban planes and ships from landing and docking. But you say people need to come in. In reality, they don't. But if you add a little complexity for humanitarian reasons, it is still relatively simple to control, and this is where it got botched. Let me remind you that many countries for decades have had research facilities that handle deadly viruses and know how to not spread them into the communities where their staff live. This is nothing new, and the processes used there can be applied to airports and cruise terminals. We don't lack the science, we just didn't use it. Not only does Australia have vast oceans outside of it that pandemics can't cross, we have vast inland deserts that are devoid of people and where pandemics can't traverse. So they should have been utilised. Instead, we put people in inner city hotels and let admin, cleaning and security staff fraternise with them in a completely lax manner, and history shows the failures that produced. We also didn't control contact between those in isolation. It really was a dog's breakfast, such was the thoughtlessness applied. It is also worth noting that we had experienced many other overseas pandemics in the past half-century to learn from, and no lessons had been learnt. Many of these were as recent as the last 2 decades, and we watched the spread from usually China to the USA and Europe in rapid time. Yet we were slow to respond. The example of the cruise ship Ruby Princess highlights that, where we had plenty of time between December 2019, the date it was first identified in Wuhan, and March 2020, when tourists were permitted to get off the Ruby Princess to sightsee. 3 months is too long a time, but the lure of boosting the economy has always taken precedence over risks to our health, and that has permeated the thinking all along, be it deliberate or just out of plain stupidity. The authorities knew there were COVID cases on board before anyone alighted, but a few taxi fares, meals in cafes and dollars spent in trinket shops was too much to pass up. I will show you that it backfired and that the economy would have been far stronger had health been the number one priority from the beginning. Now I will contrast what should have happened with what has happened, and you can make your own comparisons. First, what should have happened? 1. Immediately ban people entering Australia as soon as COVID was identified. 2. Learn from the experts how to isolate a pandemic without community risk. 0 risk. 3. Set up the right facilities, infrastructure and staff to be ready for an influx of people.